The Lord of the Rings, the Rings of Power showrunner J.D. Payne is up to his old ways, attacking fans of author J.R.R. Tolkien, and he's doing so as the ratings for the show are potentially worse than The Acolyte already. I mean, that's how bad this show has gotten. That's how many people have tuned out of this show. But before we get to this, I'd like to ask you, please hit that subscribe button, hit that bell for notifications so you don't miss any of our future videos here at the Trent Report. Roll this up over at thatparkplace.com. And J.D. Payne spoke with The Hollywood Reporter, and he said this: the Fellowship had to look to each other and those who support it and remember what it's fighting for. And when we see that millions of people are watching this and responding so positively to it, that's who we're fighting for. Well, we'll get to this. I'm not sure who's actually being positive about this. If you go to the Rings of Power subreddit, even the people there are criticizing this show. Post over after post after post are people like, what are these people thinking? Why are they focusing on these characters instead of these other characters? What were they doing? What are they doing? Why are they quoting Gandalf but making it completely missing the point or inverting the point? Like, what are they doing? What are these people doing? Like, there is no one speaking positively about this show anymore. It is all criticism. It is all negativity. There isn't really any positive takeaways that people are coming at this show with. Maybe himself, his fellow co-showrunner, and the executives at Amazon, Vernon Sanders and Jennifer Salke. Maybe those are the people that they're talking about, that they're fighting for, because they're clearly not fighting for actual viewers, because people who are watching this show do not like it. And in a lot of cases, they've stopped watching. But nevertheless, he goes on and says this: and those who watch every episode and negatively write about it on social media and make YouTube videos, we're happy to have you guys too. It wouldn't be a journey through Middle Earth without some trolls along the way. So this is what this guy thinks of people who have even the mildest of criticisms. He thinks you're a troll. He thinks you are a monster. I mean, what kind of person thinks like this? This is a person whose skin is so thin, realizes that he's made something absolutely terrible, but his ego is preventing him from actually having any kind of self-reflection. So instead of maybe looking inward, seeing maybe, wow, we really did mess this up, we completely ruined what J.R.R. Tolkien wrote, no, he's going to lash out at the people pointing out his faults, because he cannot accept the blame himself. He cannot look inward, maybe even acknowledge that he's done anything wrong. So he definitely can't even improve if he can't realize what he has done is wrong. But this isn't out of character for him. Back in October 2022, following the conclusion of the show's first season, he described critics of the show as evil. So he's maybe tamped it down a little bit. You're just trolls now. You're not just outright evil. You're just trolls. And he said this again to The Hollywood Reporter: the spirit of Tolkien is about disparate peoples who don't trust one another and look different from one another, finding common ground in friendship and accomplishing big things. I wouldn't necessarily agree with that. I don't think that all of the people in the Fellowship are friends. There's obviously, you have Boromir and things like that, but they have a common goal, and that is defeating Sauron, defeating the enemy, destroying the ring. And even there's temptations and things along the way, right? That is what brings them together, the common purpose. That's the spirit we've tried to inculcate into every single comma and period in the show. If you've actually watched the show, I've watched all of the first season. I've watched the first episode of the second season and was done after that, after they turned Sauron into a black spaghetti monster bouncing down a mountain like he's a slinky. And I was like, what am I even watching here? This is just absolutely atrocious. And I was done. I was done after that. So they have not done that with every single comma and period in the show. He then addressed critics saying that this aspiration would be offensive to people and enrage them. It's very hard for us to understand. Well, that's because we actually have seen your show. We've seen that isn't actually your aspiration. We've seen what you've actually done in the show, and you're doing the opposite. You're not trying to bring people together. You're trying to sow division. You're trying to sow chaos, and that is why you're attacking people, because he says this: what are they protecting? I don't see how people who are saying these things think that they're fighting for good. There's a line in episode 7 where Galadriel says every war is fought from without and within. Even if you're fighting for something you think is good, if you do something worse in that fight, then you become evil. I don't see how people who are saying these things think that they're fighting for good. It's patently evil. So criticizing the show is patently evil, is what J.D. Payne said. I mean, just the gall of these people to say this stuff. You can't make it up. You can't make it up. Their egos are so inflated. But it comes as the show's viewership has completely tanked. Samba TV here reporting the show's lost over 50% of its viewers from the first season. They reported the season 1 premiere brought in 1.8 million U.S. households over just 4 days. And in the season 2 premiere, it's only brought in 902,000 U.S. households, but over 5 days. So they gave them an extra day. So they still only had half of the audience of this season 1 premiere. That is how many people have tuned out of this show. They are not interested in watching the show. And this isn't surprising. I mean, we had that report from Kim Masters at The Hollywood Reporter in April of last year, April 2023. And she said that 63% of people did not actually complete the show after watching portions of it. They in the US, they did not watch the show. I think it was like 55% or something like that internationally, which is still really, really bad. So it's not just Samba TV, though. We have Luminate data here as well. That shows that there were 372.7 million minutes watched for the week of September 6th through September 12th. That is essentially the show's 3rd week, because the first week was just like a single day. So the viewership was really low. And then the second week kind of blew up. As you can see there, it was at 764.7 million minutes watched in the second week. In its first week, it only garnered 63.2 million minutes watched, excuse me. So it only charted 37th on Luminate's chart according to Variety. And you can see that right here, that massive decline right there, 51% decline from that 764.7 million minutes watch number to that 372.7 minutes watch. Remember, this had a 3-episode premiere for its first week. So as you can see here, if we look at the Nielsen numbers from the first season, it had a 2-episode premiere and it did 1.253 billion minutes watched. Now, again, Nielsen and Illuminate do have different tracking. So it's not exactly an apples to apples, kind of like we saw with Samba TV, but I do think it kind of gives us an interesting picture. And even if we add up that first week that Illuminate reported plus their second week and say that is essentially the first 3 episodes, we only come to 827 million minutes, and that's still a 33% decline. And again, that doesn't even factor the fact that you had 2 episodes for season 1, 3 episodes for season 2. So you had an extra hour of watch time, over 60 minutes of watch time in that first week for season 2. So that is how bad this is. And it's also bad just looking at the season 2 numbers, right? Obviously, you can see that it declined 51% from that second week to that third week. And we actually have new numbers here now. I posted this over on X if you want to follow me over there at JF Trent. But you can see 7% decline in this most recent reporting week for Illuminate. It is down to, let's zoom in here. I think it's 346.4 million is what it's down to now. So it lost almost 30 million minutes there for its fourth week. So people are tuning out of this show, even in the second season, even after people just didn't even come back from the first season. So people are continuing to abandon the show. And this is reflected in Samba TV, or excuse me, this is reflected in IMDb reviews. So you can see the season 1 premiere had over 55,000 reviews. Season 2 premiere only had 13,000. So again, that kind of shows that decline from season 1 to season 2, which we see in the Samba TV numbers, which we see in the Nielsen to Illuminate numbers. But we also see this, if you just look at the reviews for season 2, you can see that they absolutely decline. But before we get to that, 76% decline in people reviewing the show from season 1 to season 2. I mean, again, absolutely atrocious. I think that kind of reflects those numbers from Kim Masters. 63% of people not finishing the show in season 1. But you can see here also, you look at the season 2 numbers, like I said, 13,000 for the episode 1, and then you're down here at 6.6 thousand for episode 5, which was when I wrote this earlier this week. That was the most recent one. Obviously, episode 6 has come out, but even after a week, it had only gotten 6.6. That is a almost 50% decline. So they've probably lost about half of their audience in this season already as well. I mean, that is wild, absolutely wild that is happening. What's even crazier, though, is it looks like this show is performing worse than The Acolyte. So if you recall, The Acolyte actually garnered 380.5 million minutes watched in its second week. Second week, it did 380.5 million minutes watched. That's more than the 372.2 million minutes watched that Illuminate reported The Rings of Power received in its third week, which I think we can say is essentially its second week, given the way Illuminate's weekly reporting data is. So The Acolyte actually had more watch time in its second week than The Lord of the Rings of Power did. And as Mac here, now it's known on X, The Lord of the Rings of Power fourth episode is 24 minutes longer than The Acolyte's third episode. So you had 24 more minutes of watch time for The Rings of Power, and The Acolyte still had more total minutes watched. I mean, it's getting beat by The Acolyte. Like, The Rings of Power is getting got beat by The Acolyte. What happened to The Acolyte? He got scrapped. Disney and Lucasfilm shut that crap down, did not renew it for a second season, did not greenlight a second season because the viewership was so atrocious. But what are The Rings of Power doing? What's Amazon doing? They're still planning to do a five-season show. No one's going to be watching this. Can you imagine what the ratings are going to look like with the fifth season? I mean, we're already performing worse than The Acolyte here. This is awful. This show is going to drop off the Illuminate charts. I mean, we're already looking at, it's in fourth here. Where was it at this week? It's down to fifth. It's down to fifth. It's already dropping. I mean, it's going to fall even further. Like I fully expect this to start showing up at the bottom of the charts here moving forward. I mean, people are literally just not watching this show, But that's probably why J.D. Payne is lashing out. Because again, his ego. He cannot accept that he's made a shoddy product. He cannot accept the actual criticism that people have been giving him. He cannot accept that what he has made is not good. And instead of reflecting on that, recognizing, hey, what we did was wrong, we'll try to improve. No, what he has done is he has lashed out and he's attacking the people who are criticizing him because he cannot accept that criticism. He cannot see the truth. He cannot see the reality of the situation. But I don't expect this to improve because you're dealing with people who have massive egos and think that they can do no wrong. But let me know what you guys make of this J.D. Payne, showrunner for Lord of the Rings of Power, lashing out, attacking critics of his show, of his abominable vision for J.R.R. Tolkien's Second Age. Let me know in the comments below. Remember to always be charitable, especially to each other, but to always speak the truth.